Awesome. Well, thank you for the introduction, Sasha, and for your team's work in helping to publicize what we're doing. And this is an area where we, I've noticed a lot of fear around working with distribution. And I think a lot of it just comes from not understanding what's going on. So, in this about 25 minutes, I'm going to cover some things that have come up as questions or issues. And then I really want to create a lot of space for your questions. And again, feel free to submit those in the chat box, or you can ask me live once I finish the presentation. As I'm going through the deck, if you have a question, feel free to stop me at any point. So let's get started. So today's agenda, is what I hear all the time. What's going on with distributors and why are they behaving so weird? Or why are they not showing up the way we hope they would show up? We'll go into what value do national distributors bring to the supply chain. Very core, how can I manage the costs of doing business with the distributors? There is a cost, we all know it, but how do I manage that to be the least amount possible? And then how do I maximize the value working with the distributor? So we'll cover all of that in the next 25 minutes. And then again, really open to your questions and an open conversation as we go. For those of you that don't know me, I'm going to be very brief in my background. I started when I was 21 at a company called Monterey and worked there most of my career. Ended up buying the company from the founder and built it into, with my team, a national food distribution company that I sold to KeHE. I was at KeHE for a couple of years running the fresh division and then left to work at Jimbo's, which is an amazing supernatural chain here in San Diego. And Jimbo is still a really good friend. And then I started Be Driven, where we work with emerging brands in lots of capacity, from consulting to kind of a brand management brokerage. We do accounting, production management services, and almost like a Swiss Army knife for emerging brands is what we seek to be. And then also, and relevant to this conversation too, is the University of San Diego. I just finished serving for a year as an adjunct professor of supply chain, where I spent a lot of time on kind of the academic level thinking about the retail food supply chain and determining or finding better ways to think about it and how to articulate about it. So definitely have a strong background in supply chain and distribution from many different angles. And let's start digging in. So why is this happening to us as manufacturers? So what's happening and why they're behaving weird is that distributors in general do not make much money. And in many cases with their largest customers, they lose money when they sell to their biggest retailers. KeHE loses money selling to Sprouts, and Unify loses money selling to Whole Foods and many other customers. So this is all kind of the competitive environment. If you're a distributor, you don't have a lot to compete on, right? You have trucks, you have warehouses, and those aren't that hard. So they decided to compete on price, driving price lower and lower and lower, and eventually they went below their cost of operations. And I think there was some thoughts about, hey, maybe we could leverage the efficiency of these major accounts like Sprouts and Whole Foods to become profitable. And that leverage didn't come from operational efficiency as much as it came from this idea of cost shifting money back to manufacturers, so that profit gap was filled by cost shifting. Distributors do not make a lot of money. Look in the news at Unify, the president just lost their job yesterday. They're underperforming. KeHE is a private company, so we don't know how they're doing, but I promise you, distributors are not getting rich on the backs of manufacturers. They have a model that is just not providing profit to their bottom line. And without people like Unify and KeHE, we don't get product to retailers. So they're trying to figure that out, and they're pushing that onto you. The cost shifting of costs from the distributor to the manufacturer has been going on for years, and it is market. So when people complain about what's happening, well, you're complaining about the market. It's not just KeHE, what KeHE does, or Unify what Unify does. This is just how the market's set up. And what we can do is just be really aware of how it's set up and then try to tailor what we're doing to be able to survive and flourish, considering that this is a market for national distribution. So what I believe is that managed well, the manufacturer can still earn a higher gross margin through a national distributor versus a regional. And regionals have a very important place. And I love regionals, such as a Seacoast in San Diego, a Rainforest, a GFI. GFI is actually national, but more of a specialty player. They serve an amazing purpose, especially for younger brands and with certain accounts and in certain situations. In the end, if you think about all the costs to get from a product from you to a retailer, even with the cost shifting back to you, KE and Unify in general will cost less if we manage the distributor well. So that's provocative, and we'll dig more into that. So really quickly, the way that money flows ideally in a supply chain is that it flows from right to left as value is created by the grower, selling raw materials to the manufacturer. Manufacturer turns it into like a CPG product. It goes into distribution, and every step of the way, money is being made. The challenge we have is that the distributors and retailers more and more are making money on the buy side instead of on the value they create at their step in the supply chain. And this is what I was talking about earlier. It's being caused, especially on the distribution side, because of the competitive environment in distribution. And at that point, it's very valid. So the distributors aim to make 6 to 12% from you to offset their money-losing programs. Your goal is to be 6%, not 12, or 20% in some cases, right? So that's what we'll talk about here. We'll go on here. So what value do national distributors bring? There's like almost this, I hear this talk and this background noise in the industry of like, can we replace KE and Unify? And, what are they doing? And they're destroying our industry. And well, these guys have built extremely complex supply chains that are hyper efficient in consolidating, inbounding, and shipping out products. That's what they do, right? And this is not easy. And on a national scale to execute this is one of the most complex things ever attempted by man. So they do create value in that sense. Do they do the job as well as they could? I would contend not, but I think in Unify's press release today, they talked about their new leadership coming in, tremendous focus on systems and processes and machine learning and AI to help bring our industry forward. Distributors also facilitate the flow of money. As you know, from a lot of the deductions are for deals or scambacks you give into retailers, and they flow back from the retailer through the distributor back to you as deductions. They create channels for your products to get to market. In terms of what we do as a company, we're often trying to get a brand in anchor account, like a Sprouts or a Whole Foods, that turns on a number of distribution centers, and then we can sell from the distribution centers to other independents. So the fact that distributors handle so many accounts and have these distribution centers around the country is really advantageous to us as long as we can make money working with them. The distributors also, and KE in particular, is automatic. At Unify, you pay extra for it. They provide sell-in data that can be helpful prior to accessing national syndicated data. So if you're not buying spins or Nielsen data, the sell-in data that you get from KE can be extremely helpful. It can help you identify voids. It's in terms of like stores that should be buying the product that's not, and then you can follow up with those specific stores. You can see what your fill rates are and see if there's a problem. We had a client last week where we do weekly data reporting from KE for them, where we identified the Flower Mound KE distribution center had a challenge. We were able to call the buyer at KE and resolve it because we were looking at this data. The data we get from the national distributors is often more complete and more comprehensive than we see from regionals. So how can I manage the cost of doing business? This is a big one. So I'm going to spend an extra amount of time here, and we'll talk about deductions and some core areas of how we can prevent them. Number one, and when we're working with brands fighting deductions, we read their contract that they have with their distributors. If you haven't signed a contract with KE Unify, in some cases you can negotiate. I've seen 2% 10 terms turned into 1% 10 terms, and other various points of that contract have been negotiated in the past. It really depends on the SRM at Unify or the category manager at KE, and really what the prevailing mood is in that distributor relative to the ability to negotiate. Also, if you're launching in a Sprouts, for example, under an innovation program, we can oftentimes get you on a special program where you're not doing a free fill for the retailer, and you can also skip out a lot of costs of doing business with KE that are all kind of special contract that was created for emerging brands. So number one is reading the contract. The other is like, hey, if I can be very strategic about how I launch, for example, nationally, like doing the innovation program with a retailer, I can sometimes skip out on some of the costs of doing business. Deduction management, I have this one comment here, but there's more comments coming up in future slides. Number one comment I have for you in deduction management is take pictures of every single pallet leaving. If you're using a 3PL, require your 3PL, take pictures of every single pallet going onto a KE or Unified truck. Believe me, it'll save you thousands of dollars down the line. The contract that you sign with KE Unify allows them to basically sign the BOL at the point of pickup, but then count and adjust the count at the point of receipt at their distribution center. And so to fight back on that, we need to have pictures. So, but I'll talk more about deductions in a moment. Communication around late POs. This is an area where I've had so many brands who couldn't ship an order and they don't communicate with KE Unify about it, and then they get a charge back. They get a fee for being late, a penalty fee. And in many cases, all that needed to happen was a conversation with the buyer. One of the things I highly recommend for every brand is becoming very good friends with your buyer in terms of, hey, if the PO is like excessive or too small, being able to have a conversation with them. If you're having a late PO, like the product is not going to be done in time for the PO, being able to have a relationship where you can call that buyer and have a conversation is massive. It'll save you money down the line. And then a discerning approach to distributor programs. I was talking to a brand yesterday that had signed up for everything that the KE category manager asked for. They did four or five OIs. They did their national advertising program and just everything. And if you take a discerning approach and really try to focus on things that create value, which I'll talk about later, we can really manage the cost of doing business while maximizing the opportunities we have with that distributor. So just some core terms, the 2%, 10, net 35 terms that are standard. If those can be negotiated, great. I want to remind you that you will never be paid in 10 days by a distributor if they're picking up from you. The 10 days starts from the point that the product reaches the KE distribution center and is put away, often taking 20 to 25 days for that to happen, especially if it's being cross-docked. Ship not received is the reason we take photos of every single pallet. I find that ship not received are like the biggest deductions we see that we can actually fight back against if we have photos. That KE Connect BI program, which gives you access to all the data, costs you 2%. Free fills and MCBs are based on national lists, and I'll explain that more to you. I think a lot of people believe that free fills are based on what you charge KE or Unify, and they're not. They're based on the highest list price that they ever charge anybody in the nation. So it's often marked up 40% on top of what you're charging KE or Unify. The opening of new distribution centers often requires a 15% OI. There's price protection. If you lower your price, anything in stock all of a sudden gets revalued and they'll get a deduction for that adjustment. Fill rates and delayed purchase orders, again, having that relationship with the buyer is super core, because if you're not able to change that PO date and you're not able to ship in the number of days that you told KE Unify, you will get a penalty. Then warehouse spoils and retailer spoils are other areas of deductions to be aware of. And again, all of these areas theoretically are negotiable when you're signing a contract, although since COVID, we noticed that it's much harder to negotiate. Having a major anchor account like a Sprouts or Whole Foods is helpful than being able to have an opportunity to negotiate those. If you already have a contract, they are not renegotiable in general. I've seen it done by one person, one of my clients, but it took a lot of work, and it's was a very unusual situation. I think I already told you about 2%, 10, ship not received, I explained. I wanted just to give this example a bit more clarity. This is probably one of the areas of the most confusion I see, is that when I'm doing an MCB, so manufacturer chargeback, or a free fill, it is not billed back at what I charge the distributor. It is billed back at what I charge the distributor, plus the freight to get it into their distribution center. On top of that, a markup of up to 45% is added to it in terms of how the MCB discount is calculated or how the free fill is calculated. So they're buying, you need to be prepared for a bigger expense than probably you're aware of. Okay, and I mentioned that multiple times, do not short your distributor without communication. And one thing I highly recommend as you're dealing with deductions is keeping for your sales team, and for smaller companies, it'll just be the CEO, keeping track of all the promos you've submitted. You're gonna get so many deductions, it'll feel overwhelming. And if you don't have a master location where you kept all the things that you committed to the retailers, that'll be coming back as deductions, you may get overwhelmed and not take the time to analyze what you're being deducted for. We do find that 8 and sometimes over 10% of deductions are erroneous, not because Unify and KE wish to steal from you, it's just the systems are so complex. and so manual, they do result in errors. So very important that we have systems internally to make sure that we understand what these deductions are. Maximizing the value of working with distributors. So, you know, this is the core thing. We need to build in the cost of doing business with the distributor in our pricing. And I want to just break this down a little bit. If I'm working with a regional, for example, like a rainforest, their margin to the retailer is going to be 25%. As a manufacturer, we're very cognizant on the retail SRP, our retail price at shelf, because we know that that drives demand or drives velocity. So that 25% margin often requires us to charge less to a distributor like Rainforest or Seacoast in order for us to hit the target SRP. That same customer serviced by KE or Unify may be only 6 or 7% markup or 8% markup. And the cost of doing business with KE is about 8% as well, up to 12, but managed well can be 8. So all in, it's about 16% as a cost of doing business, and which is about 9% less than doing business with a regional distributor, many of the regional distributors. So in general, KE and Unify should be a cheaper way to get product to a retailer if you manage it well. Their inbound freight options do make sense in a lot of cases. Inbound freight, so picking up from you and bringing it back to their distribution center, is a way that distributors make a lot of profit. But they also, for an emerging brand that's just starting out, that maybe is shipping a couple layers on a pallet, trying to ship it LTL outside of KE Unify could be way more expensive. And so their inbound freight options are decent when you're younger. I do recommend as you become larger, if you become like a $5, $7, $10 million brand, that you take over freight as soon as you can and own that. Eventually, you will be able to claim margin by owning freight, just generally not at the beginning. The food shows that distributors offer are amazing. I work with so many brands that have opened major accounts from attending food shows that KE and Unify. And the regional tabletops, I know there's one happening in Chicago today and one in Orange County next week for KE. Highly recommend those. Low cost of entry and great opportunity to meet especially more regional players and independents. So that market they're creating, the shows are one of the key value points that I find. I recommend attending, if you can afford it, one national show a year, at least. And certainly, once I'm in, like I said earlier, once I'm like launching at a Sprouts, for example, in KE, I'm in 7 distribution centers that service, hundreds, if not thousands, of other retailers. I'm already there. It's no more work in a way for KE and for you to ship product to more retailers once you're into a national distribution retailer. One thing I highly recommend, and we've been finding the KE reps in particular lately are doing a fantastic job of supporting our brands. So get to know those distributor account reps. They represent tens of thousands of products, and people often forget them. I encourage you to get to know the ones in key markets for you, to send them samples, to become their friend. They're not really beholden to representing any brands, but they will represent brands well that they care about. And if you care about them, they'll care about you. And they love samples. And like I said, beginning to know your distributor buyers. I've said this now, I think 4 times in this presentation. You cannot understate the value of having a relationship with your buyer. It is so important. And maybe one more point there is I've had so many brands who have received these large POs that have come in and they're like, oh, let's celebrate, let's do overtime, let's get this product out, only to have it be an error. One of the ways to really manage your distributor to be profitable, in my mind, and also to manage cash flow, is to really rationalize all purchase orders coming in. KE is a special case because everybody who works with KE already has access to all the data. And you can take a look and does that PO make sense relative to the business that's happening out of those distribution centers? I highly recommend that every PO is scrutinized, especially if you have a fresh product. As you likely know or will soon learn, you own spoils in the KE Unify environment. They are not responsible for making errors in general. So you need to own what that category manager or what that buyer is doing. I use the term drayage company. If I think of KE and Unify as drayage companies, effectively they just bring in product and move it, and that's all they do. And I'm responsible for everything else. that approach will help you to manage the distributor well, to prevent out of stocks and make sure you're not getting chargebacks from product going out of code or just moving too slow and them deciding they need that slot for somebody else. So I hope that you found this part of the presentation valuable. My sense is that your questions going forward are going to be even more valuable to you, and I am open to answer any questions that you have. And as you see here, I'm definitely open to talking to anyone on a one-on-one basis and talking about your specific problems even outside of this time together. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Feel free to submit questions to the chat box, or you can also raise your hand or just speak up, and happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Luke. Before we go there, I would like to share the results of the poll that we did in the beginning real quick. So the question was, if you have fear around working with the current or national distributor, can you guys see it? Just want to make sure.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, cool. So it looks like most of the people say yes, then some are no. So hopefully after this presentation, there'll be more no's than yeses. We can
maybe
check
there'll be
later.
more yeses. Maybe they didn't even think about all the possible issues that they're working with distributors.
Yes, right. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. Kristen raised her hand. Okay, I can. There you go.
Yeah,
Hi,
Kristen, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much, Luke and Sasha, for that presentation. That was really insightful. I am brand new to distribution. So as I'm currently having very early conversations with KeHE and UNFI, I am curious about these programs for emerging brands.
Yeah.
They seem, KeHE and UNFI seem a little bit protective of those programs. So how do I navigate? How do I get into those? How do I tap in and take advantage of those as I'm brand new to distribution?
Yeah. What we're noticing is that KeHE and UNFI are proactively reaching out to brands that they're hearing about. So that's one way. You certainly can reach out to the category manager. They can refer you or to the program leaders directly. And those are things that we can help connect you with. We have the contacts. Don't have them on this call handy, but it definitely can help you with that. Those programs are good in that you will save money compared to attending a food show will cost you much less, and oftentimes they're much more friendly in terms of all the fees, and they also will give you more time and attention at the beginning, which is really helpful for an emerging brand. What I find, however, is that oftentimes they're signing up brands for programs they do not need, even if they are at a discount. And so I encourage you to be very discerning, and like in terms of like where the value is. Yeah, the value is in a food show. Absolutely, I want to be at a food show. Is the national advertising program, being in a catalog, for example, valuable? I would say it's less valuable. I'd be concerned about spending money in that way. So yeah, those programs are fantastic. I want to honor KeHE and UNFI for creating them, and they will save you money, but we still need to be careful. And they make you feel really good. They're effectively salespeople trying to sell you these programs. They get you in, and then they get you used to paying for these programs. And then I got a call from a brand yesterday. They had been kicked out of the emerging brand program at UNFI. What does this mean? I'm like, well, it's just higher costs. And well, I signed up for all these programs. Well, they're going to cost you more. So just be aware of that. We always have to be discerning, and remember that they may come across like they're trying to help you, and I believe they really do believe they're helping, but it may not be the best thing for your bottom line.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That was great.
Thank you, Christine. We have a questions in a chat box, so I'll just go through it. Monica is asking, one thing I'm trying to learn more about is how to navigate regional versus national distributors. When you sign out with a national distributor, do we have to get rid of the regional, or can we still keep someone for a certain region? What are the advantages, disadvantages of both? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a great one. And so I'll give you an example of a brand that I invested in, and Sasha and I worked together on. The brand's called Eroica, and we launched them last year, I think it was, into Mothers and Jimbos. And we did it through a regional distributor because we wanted to move fast. This regional distributor, Seacoast, Val's the owner, amazing guy, super nimble, no cost of doing business. Whereas 8 to 12% at KeHE UNFI, it's like 0% with this guy. And we were able to get on shelf immediately. We were able to get going, and then we were able to get launched nationally at Sprouts, like almost right away. Then we went into KeHE. like, so Seacoast, the advantage, for example, is that Val's team will merchandise product, right? That's a huge advantage. The
Yeah,
cost of merchandising is enormous for an emerging brand.
it is.
So,
Yeah.
right, Monica? So,
Yep.
so a Seacoast may be the better option in even the mid to long term if that merchandising is very meaningful. Like if I'm in the beverage set, for example, merchandising is everything, right? And
Yeah.
so I would definitely be very motivated on using a regional and a rainforest. Rainforest does some minor merchandising, Doors as well in New York, but they
Yeah.
also have
We're
merchandising
with
teams you
Doris.
can hire.
Yeah, we're currently with Doris for our Northeast Whole Foods business.
Yep.
We were at Expo East and got some interest from KeHE, so we're starting that conversation now. But I just find it so like, navigating all the different,
Yeah.
the different
Yeah.
ones and who's going to get you, and who does the most. I mean, I know this isn't the scope of this call, but it for us, we have grocery as part of our business, and then we have on-premise bars and restaurants, and that's a whole nother
Whole
nightmare
different
with
animal.
distributors.
Yes. Yeah. I I get it. And so I love regionals at the beginning, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like I want to get on shelf, I want to get going, I want to validate, I might take a hit in my margin, but man, I have merchandising and in most cases with these
Hmm.
regionals, I'll have merchandising, especially like the Seacoasts and the Doras and the rainforests of the world. But over time, what I'm going to run into is, you know, I want to hit at SRP and I need to be profitable. Raising capital right
Yeah.
now sucks, right?
Yeah.
So over time, a KE and Unify can make more sense. And I'll just spend another minute on this. For many of the brands here, you're bootstrapping. There's a brand I spent a lot of time working closely with called Three Trees, does a plant-based milk. We were able to grow that brand nationally really without merchandising. And we literally used the KE reports and Unify reports to identify voids. We'd call the stores individually that had voids. We'd have a conversation with the department manager. We would send VIP coupons and hats. At the time, it was like masks for COVID, and get the product back on shelf that way. And so that allowed us to work through a KE Unify. We didn't have merchandising, but we were able to have relationships. And so if we
Yeah.
had that capacity, that was the way we hacked it. And so there are ways to work around it.
So I just had one other question, so I'll save
Go ahead.
Alexandra the and it's kind of related, for her repeating it, but it was just like, so what are some good strategies to create a good relationship with the buyers? I mean, sometimes I do, even in the regional distribution
Yes.
world, I feel like you're still kind of like a one in a million, there's
Mhm.
there's a lot of other people. So how do you like, are there any,
Yeah. Samples. Send them samples. Send them
okay.
Here's the deal. As a buyer, your job is looking in front of a computer screen all day, every day. You don't
Yeah.
matter. You're a cog in in this whole game. And if you show interest, if you send samples, if you build a relationship, that is enough in my mind, in most cases, to help you, give you the leg up you need in making sure this person is buying enough or not too much, or adjusting POs to different dates if you're having production challenges. But
And is it
just
recommended to do things like send t-shirts or any other type of swag, or is it just the
oh
product?
yeah, yes.
Okay.
Anything you can do to make a buyer who's like stuck in a cave all day feel like having a more exciting day, I would do that.
Got it. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, you're very welcome. And I wanted to clarify, I've done this. I've instructed brands on this for years, and I've found every single time it's created value for us in terms of being
Yeah.
kind to buyers.
Okay. No,
Um,
great. Thank you so much.
Monica, fantastic questions. Okay, Brian, I was just talking to you yesterday.
Hi there. Sorry, is it loud? I'm driving
No,
safely.
you're all
You're
good.
good.
You're all good. Go ahead.
Okay, I had a question about promotions. So I did the new at KeHE, and that's going well. And I just did the KeHE roadmap. And both Unify and KeHE, when you onboard, they make you do they have minimum promotional calendar requirements. And so my question is it worth it in your experience to do more than the minimum?
No.
I just have no sense. I have no sense of whether or not there's going to be
Yeah.
like a good return
Yeah.
on that kind of investment.
Yeah, you know, if it's venture capital backed and I had millions of dollars in the bank account, yeah, I'd like sign up for everything and do everything. But most of the brands here, and I think just where we're at economically in our industry, like no, in general, we want to be really, really discerning on those programs. I'm even scared about some of the programs that open up distribution centers without having customers, unless I'm going to be really, really active in opening the business myself. I mentioned that those distributor reps can be very valuable tools, but they're not guaranteed tools. And what can happen, I've seen happen, is getting into these distribution centers, 8 months go by, there's still pallets sitting around. And I know, Brian, in your case, it wasn't pallets, it was layers. But then you're being asked to take it back or throw it away. So just really, the way that I'll just maybe take a moment and explain how I like working with national distribution. I would almost rather not do these like Elevate programs. I'd rather just go get a anchor account. Like in Southern California, that would be like a gosh, Gelson's is a great example. Gelson's will open up Unify. Mothers will open up Unify. And then to have an anchor account, getting that business going, I have a chance to not sign up for all these programs I don't need, and I can add them over time. And you know, I think I get it. I may pay more for my food show, but I think overall I may be in a better place in that situation. I just am really scared about opening up DCs without having anchor customers to kind of support them. Brian, did I answer your question? Feel free to ask a follow-up.
Yeah, it did. Maybe you could comment real quickly on like one of the things I had to do in the KE roadmap was ad buys and full page ads.
No value in my opinion. And right there, if someone has a different experience, let me know. I've never seen value from the ad buys. Ever.
Thank you so much.
No one's ever told me that worked for them. So
okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. Sina.
Yes, hello. Thank you for this very fun presentation, informative.
I'm glad you find it fun.
I have two questions. I am still not at all ready to even think about distribution. I'm taking like 6 months to figure out my scale, the scale of my production, onboarding with a co-packer, getting the machine. So to me, it's more of a getting prepped capacity wise in order to then think about distribution. But the question is, when in this process of scaling your production, do you start communicating with teams like yours and think about how to distribute? Like when you have a prototype, or what?
Yeah.
What's in that phase?
Okay, so the earlier the better, and just anyone here, we give 30 minutes free consulting, and I would just recommend you take it. You have nothing to lose. There's no strings attached, and there's no strong like hard sales push from my side, but our side. We just really have a heart for helping, and the sooner you talk to us, we can talk about we can help get you on the right track. So often we meet people who've spent years or months working on projects and branding and packaging and a product that just isn't going to work. Examples are, I see people come to me, well, it's packed 16 count. Well, if it's going to be a CPG product, ideally it's 8, right? Or hey, I have this beautiful packaging and I put all the attributes on the back, and well, this isn't going to work. They just need to be on the front. So ideally, you're having a conversation. It doesn't have to be us. There's lots of people that are knowledgeable, but if more than welcome to call us. We're happy to have a short call with you, and then kind of do check-ins from time to time. We're happy to do that to make sure you're going on the right course. So you don't do all this work and then it's like, well, I don't know if this is going to work. And that's happened way too often, way more than it needs to.
Yeah, I guess I need to be reminded of what is it exactly that you guys do as a group so that I know what to approach you in the near future. I am having a consultation, like a 3-month with a Consulco product and Prosper with Caroline Grace. I don't know if you're familiar with her. Hopefully to help me understand all of those pinpoints until I'm more ready. And the other question I had was, I've been invited by, I think it's UNFI, to be part of their marketplace, like their online.
The online, yeah.
Which I didn't onboard because since I'm switching all the format of my products, it doesn't really make sense to onboard now. And they do require, I think, that certification. I don't know if it's GFSI or SQF or one of those. So only when I onboard with a co-packer, I will be able to do it. What are your thoughts on being in that marketplace?
Yeah, all in on being in the marketplace. I think those marketplaces are great. I've been in the facilities at Unify and KeHE where they ship. They're amazing. They're super efficient, and it opens your product to more people. And I think that's fantastic. They may be more and more selling you on programs, and again, being discerning about what they're asking you to pay for to be part of those programs. And we're happy to take a look at it, to give you feedback. And in terms of what we do, I'll give you like 1 minute of what we do. So oftentimes brands are hiring us to consult them when they're very early stage, and that could be 30 minutes a month or hours a month. One brand we were consulting 80 hours a month. So it just really depends on where you're at, but kind of, how much you want to use this, what your skill set is. As you're getting up and running, we are really good at thinking about the strategy of how to go to market. And then as a company, we focus on the key natural retailers, the top 80 chains in America, from like Whole Foods down to like a Berkeley Bowl in Oakland. Our job is to get you in there and get you in front of these category managers and get you on shelf. And we work on having special relationships with people like Sprouts in the fresh market, where they know that we're bringing really cool emerging brands, and you're given an opportunity that may not happen in other places. And then finally, we also do things like we have a team that fights deductions that are erroneous, and we have a team that does accounting, and we do many other things. But that's just an idea of some of what we do. So effectively, we're your Swiss Army knife. If it's not us you're working with, we have a whole team of affiliates that we can recommend you to, that we've vetted and worked with through the years. Thank you for the question, Sina. Did I answer everything?
Yes, thank you. And you have a very trustworthy personality. It's very sweet. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Is it Don? I think is this question as a hand up.
Don Lee from Eat Coffee.
Don Lee.
Hi, Don. Are you there? Okay, maybe we can move to the next question. But I have actually commented. Can we get a list of national distributors and list of regional distributors? Also, can we get presentation slides? So yes, the slides you'll get after the in the email after the event. And I think we can put together a list of national distributors and regional.
Yeah, of course.
What do you think?
Yes.
Right, and share with this group. So we'll put it together and then email as well. Jocelyn is commenting, I was just included in the KeHE Elevate program, but it does come with all these paid discounted opportunities that I might not have chosen if not in the program.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? They're getting you used to like signing up for all these programs that I don't know if they create value, or enough value for the price. At least you're getting a discount on them, and you can try them out at a lower price and see what works for you. But I don't know about anyone on this call, but capital is really hard to come by, and every penny counts in this world today. And I just, wouldn't spend any pennies anywhere. I think there's this perception, okay, he wants me, or Unify wants me. I'm so excited. I got the golden ticket. That's it. I got it. But really, that's just the start. The KeHE Unify, yes, they are your customer because they issue POs, but your true customer are retailers. And you reaching out, or you having a company like V-Driven reaching out on your behalf is, I think, much more valuable than a one-page ad in a KeHE book. I'm not saying there's no value, but I think there's more value to be created by other means.
Sherry, Unify SRMs do not share much info with buyers once items are approved.
Yes.
It's great to send samples and T-shirts, and you get them.
Great advice.
Befriend them.
Sherry could be leading this class. She's had a lot of experience in this space. You're right.
Thank you.
We worked together for a very long time.
Nice. Okay, I don't have any other questions in here in the chat box, so you guys feel free to raise your hand. There's a lot probably to talk about distributor. Maybe look, I was wondering, mention about the KeHE and Unify reports that you can get from them. So what are the things that once you are in distributor you need to be looking at, and how, on a weekly basis or monthly basis?
Great question. So Sasha, we've been having this with that brand heroic I mentioned earlier, with that Sprouts that Sprouts business we have for them. We're looking at KeHE data every week. And so we have a team, offshore team, that turns KeHE data into like visualizations and makes it easier to digest. So we're looking at voids. Like we look at by distribution center, what voids we're supposed to be on shelf or in the planogram, we're not there. I want to see this. Looking at data such as where we've not been on shelf and or had any purchases by a Sprout store in 4 weeks. That's like a short-term void. Where we've not seen a purchase in 8 weeks, that's a long-term void. And ideally, we have merchandisers, we're sending merchandisers in those stores to get back on shelf, or we're calling the department manager to get back on shelf, or we're talking to the category manager at Sprouts to get back on shelf. We also are using that data to understand fill rates. I mentioned that earlier, right? With KeHE data, unified data, we can see fill rates by distribution center. We can see when things go off the rails, and then we can talk to our buyer, hey, you're not ordering enough, or hey, there's a problem at the warehouse, bringing and escalating that problem to get resolved. We can also look at sell-in data. Most of the brands on this call do not have the ability to pay $20,000, $30,000 of spends a year. And so we're dependent on that sell-in data to create our data stories that help us leverage business we already have to gain new business. That data is gold. And so I get it. Sell-through data, which is syndicated data like Spins and Nielsen, is the most valuable. That is expensive. Cheap is KeHE and unified data. So that's what we're looking at every week.
Yeah, data.
Nice. Yep.
That's important.
Yes, and I see Kristen asked if we can get a list of all acronyms associated with distribution. We can totally put that together. That's a great point. What is an SRM? Hey, and it's all different between different distributors. An SRM, by the way, is effectively a category manager. The SRM is used at Unify, category manager is used at KeHE. Monica, you had another question.
Yeah, sorry. The reporting, just back to that real quick. So right now we get our reports, and I don't know if this just applies for national distributors, but we get our reports from like Whole Foods, from their portal, not from Adora's. Does that change? So when we go to national distribution, is there any difference between what the store would give you or what a distributor would give you in terms of reports, or is one better than the other?
Yeah, so where I can get reports from a retailer. So in the case of Adora, this brand we're working with, we love to get data from the category manager. We don't want to overbug that category manager for data because we don't want to be a thorn in their side. So we ask maybe for it once a month, and that data is the most detailed and most important. That's sell-through data from the perspective of the retailer. We love that, and it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so I think that's great. And for emerging brands, I find that retailers are often much more friendly about sharing data from the retailer themselves.
Okay.
Best in class is always to use whatever data the distributor gives you, and especially as you're looking at voids, fill rates, and sell-in data, selling into the retailers.
And then you mentioned, I'm sorry, I'm asking so many questions. I'm very new. We're pretty new on the market. We come from bar and restaurants background and just launched our first product. So this is all very, very new for us. But the voids, you mentioned something, and I wanted to make sure I was thinking of it correctly. Is it best to, because when we get the reports, we're like, okay, there were voids in this stores, and then we get a report the following week, and they're like, oh wait, now there's voids in this stores.
Yes.
So should it be like should we look at it from like a 4-week period and
4
an 8-week
weeks.
period?
Yeah,
Okay,
in general.
that makes more sense because I was going crazy. Like
It'll drive you crazy, and you'll drive the stores crazy if you're calling them.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
Okay.
you could do 3 weeks if you wanted, but I'm just kind of, it depends on the item, right? Some products, like I there's a brand on this call that has like olive oil, right? That might move one and a half units per store per week. There's another brand that has a beverage in the refrigerated set that we should be selling 6 to 8, right? So in the case of the olive oil, I'm checking maybe once a month. In the case of the beverage, I'm checking it maybe on a 2-week void for a short-term void, right? But that's really good.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes, Sina is asking, what do you think of Range Me Premium and WeGrow?
Yeah. Okay. So early on, I talked to brands about testing it and did not find value from those in the natural channel. I think in conventional it can be more valuable, but I have never found value. And things change. So I'm not saying don't try it. I'm just saying I've never had any value come from those, and nothing's really come from it for me and my brands. Yeah, so I think that's my answer on that. There's a free version of Arrange Me that I do recommend you're a part of. Okay.
Thank you,
And
Sina. Do you have?
Sasha,
Yep.
Sasha, I think we should do a role play.
Sure, let's do it. Do you want? There's one more question from Fatima. Maybe we can handle that
That's the one we're gonna role play. You're the
Oh, okay.
SRM, and I'm Monica, and so.
Wait, I am the SRM, or can we have
you're the SRM.
I think Fatima should be the SRM because she asked a question. How about that? Do you agree?
Okay. So Fatima, have you actually been approached already?
No, I haven't.
Okay, guys.
We're
Okay,
currently just like we're in the formulation phase. It's really early, but I'm doing my best to kind of get ahead of things and learn.
Got it. So I will do my own role play then. So what's happening here is they're going to be really friendly and nice and kind. They're going to build you up and be, is so excited. Congratulations, we've chosen you, and you've been chosen because they do think you're going to be successful, right? But what I teach at the beginning, right, is that they make more money on the buy side sometimes than on the sell side. So their goal is to get you in this funnel of getting used to giving them money, and they're training you, right? They're effectively in their incubator training you to give them more money. I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying we have to be very discerning. And so the way I've approached it when brands are being asked for money that we don't have or don't want to spend is just to really emphasize, hey, we're a startup. And if you're not venture capital funded, it's like we are self-funded. We are bootstrapped. I just do not have the capacity to do that. I wish I did. And by the way, they're bonused on getting money from you. So, they're trying to feed their kids and send their kids to school. And your job is to just really help them understand that you don't have the resources to waste money. And then, frankly, no one has resources to waste money. So you have to be very discerning. And I think it's really fair to say you just don't have the money. Don't worry about them thinking less of you. It really doesn't matter what they think of you. Again, my philosophy is I really want to have those anchor accounts first. I want that to be the way I open distribution centers. I don't want to depend on the largesse of KH Unify, because the largesse is a little bit loaded, right? And it may not be optimal for me in the end.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, and then Marty's KH will share they do. KH shares the sales rep information. Unify, I haven't seen them publish it. We maintain internally kind of a list. It's not something we just really share. We don't want to have Unify doesn't want their reps to be spammed, but when you're working with us, we do have the ability to work with them. A great example, by the way, is if you, and I didn't even mention this in the earlier presentation, like if you want to get into Wegmans, we have a brand that hired a broker for Wegmans, and I'm like, okay, so are you meeting with the category manager? Like, well, no one meets with the category manager. It's the Unify reps. I'm like, well, there's no bad benefit here because we already have a relationship with the Unify rep. And so many retailers, I think another one is Harris Teeter down in the Southeast. The Unify reps are the way to get in. And so, again, working with someone like us or someone similar to us that understands those nuances of where the distributor rep is the key person in order to getting on shelf is really, really valuable for you. A great way to meet reps, by the way, is going to the shows. At the Unify and KH shows, you're going to meet the reps. But especially if you go to the regional shows, you meet the regional reps, and you'll build relationships that way. Great.
Yeah,
so we're coming up yeah, you're welcome. We're coming up on an hour, and at this point, I believe the core part of our presentation is done. But I'm willing to hang out for as many additional questions there are. I have a heart for this, and I love this community and want to serve any way I can. So, Sasha, any other comments before we proceed?
Yeah, I can. If anybody else has a question, Sina raised. Okay. Let's go.
I'm not sure if it was answered before in the chat when I wrote. You mentioned the shows already a few times. Do we have to be already onboarded with them in order to attend the show or not?
I could be wrong on this. I believe you need to be onboarded in terms of being set up and have an ESN number with KH, for example, in order to go to their show. That's what I believe that is the case. I'm thinking of a brand that we work with that we went to the KH Chicago store show without having the product actually set up and actually in distribution. But we did have the manufacturer was set up in the system, and we were just looking to get those initial orders at the show. So I believe so it's kind of like a yes and, right? So you can go to a show when you're not in distribution centers, but you do need to be a vendor that's set up with the distributor, as far as I know.
Okay. And do you recommend those shows before like the Natural Expo or the Fancy Food Show?
Good question. Oh, that's such a hard one. Expo is extremely expensive, extremely busy, and everyone goes, but I have been, and I want to make sure it's not just an emotional response to being in a place with 100,000 people. That just drives me crazy. But I would say I really like KeHE in particular executes amazing shows. Unify is catching up with KeHE, and my brands get tremendous value from those shows. So I would say at the beginning, and maybe I would aim more for a KeHE or Unify show, and then as I get bigger and I have more money to spend, I would then go to Expo. If I have the money, I would do them all.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thank you. And Fatima
More
has
questions?
a question as well.
Fatima?
Yeah. So what I gather from this meeting, one thing I picked up is you kind of just, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're advising we put aside about 8 to 12% in case any distributor, you know, we're kind of prepared for it. Now my product, just to get a little bit more personal, it's going to be like a ready to drink, you know, indulgent oat latte. It's going to have a 12-month shelf life. What are some deductions that I could see? Like the only thing that can come to mind is maybe like a pack case is dented and some cans, you know, those kind of things. But what else when it's not a refrigerated product with a short shelf life? Can you give me a little insight on that? On what I could like best case and even worst case scenario that I could expect, just so that I'm kind of prepared a little bit.
Yeah, it's very good. So one thing, Sasha, if it's possible, we should share with her the deduction management masterclass I led, because I get extreme detail. That's an hour conversation, because the deductions are going to come from, hey, I'm turning on a distribution center. There's a 15% OI. That'll be off invoice from you to them to get the DC up and running for the first couple of months. If you're doing any deals with retailers on top of the OI, or just separate, like MCBs, so like you're giving like Sprouts, for example, a deal, all those deductions are going to come back through KeHE and Unify, and then you're going to have an 8% processing fee on top of that. And if you're doing MCBs, like I said earlier, you're going to have whatever you charge the distributor, and then the freight to get there plus 35 to 45% markup will be what that deduction is based off of. So, you know, those are core. You're going to have, I shipped a pallet, but then somehow a layer of product disappeared, and you're going to get a deduction for that. That's why taking pictures is so important. You know, I'm trying to think what else. There's probably about 75 possible deductions that you could have. And I think watching the deduction management class that I did, where I went in really extreme detail, could be helpful. And then also happy to talk to you on the side about it as well. But you know, the 2% 10 discount is going to be just automatic, right? That's something else to always be aware of. So I would say, in general, you need to use 8% as the minimum cost of doing business. It doesn't matter what your shelf life is, working with a distributor. Just figure that in. I've almost never seen it less.
Yeah, what I'm going to be like, my whole, like I'm setting up my sales sheets and figuring out what prices I should be charging. And
Oops, you're kind of breaking up a little bit.
sorry. Okay, well, I'll end by saying thank you. That was really insightful. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so just one rule of thumb I use is that as a brand, you need to be at a 45% margin on gross sales in order to have an opportunity to have a hope of being profitable in retail, ideally 50% plus. If you're in the 20s and you have no ability to get above 20, for example, I highly recommend you consider direct to consumer versus the retail space if you need to be profitable.
Does that include the trade spend, 15 to 20% trade spend? Is that included in that 45%?
Yeah, so that's going to come off of that. So typically what we find here's the industry average. I'll give this to you real quick because I think this will be very valuable for most of the group. Figure in about 16 to 20% as that cost of doing business in terms of what your promotional plans are going to be with your retailers and the cost of doing business with KeHE and Unify and other distributors. So that's 16 to 20% probably is a good way to look at it. And then so that's right off, right? So if you were making 45%, now you're down to 30, and then you're going to spend, you know, at the beginning 15, 20% on marketing. Now you're down to 10, right? So very quickly your margin disappears at the beginning. You'd be really, really mindful of that. So if you're starting off, I had a brand I talked to yesterday that's at 20%. I'm like, you're just going to lose a lot of money. What are we doing for cash? Because you're going to burn through it.
Luke, I really appreciate it. We'll definitely be in touch.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions?
Okay, I think we can slowly end it here. What do you think, Luke? What do you guys think?
Fantastic. This was so much fun, guys. Thank you for all the amazing questions.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining. Like we said, you can reach out to Luke to schedule a one-on-one 30-minute call and just go discuss any distribution, any other challenges that you have in a business, or just chat as well. And also there will be a short questionnaire or survey, like 10-second survey after you exit. So we would really appreciate your feedback on this masterclass. And also make sure that you keep an eye on your email from the Be Driven community, because the next event or workshop will be. So you as a natural brand, most of you guys are in the natural space. There is a way, right, to enter conventional, because we see that conventional channel is getting is adding more natural products as well. So like getting more familiar about the conventional channel, if it's something that interests you, make sure that you'll sign up. And having said that, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody. Have a good day.
Bye.
Have a great rest of your day.